Hey guys, Dean here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you some of the top best places to visit in Vienna, Austria. Just like my previous two videos, the one on the best places to see and explore in Innsbruck, Austria, and also the second one on the best places to visit in Salzburg, Austria, this video is basically going to be fashioned the same. I'm going to be running you through some of the top best tourist locations and spots, including attractions, museums, theme parks, and just general great places which you can see in Austria's capital. For the other two videos on the two other cities I just mentioned, check out the links below in the description. Let's check out some of the best places in Vienna. Number 18, Peterskirche. This building is a Baroque period Roman Catholic parish church with a large green domes and statues. This early 18th century church has a pleasant looking interior and nowadays functions as home to various concerts and recitals. The outside is decorated with large stone etched art pieces on its walls. This place is almost hidden on the quiet street adjacent to the Peter's Platz Square, a very busy location, and is merged into an area housing 18th and 19th century buildings. This church is not big by any means, it has a small foyer-like entrance and a fair-sized interior within. Number 17, Graben. Just before seeing the Hofburg, you'll most likely find yourself wandering down Graben. This is one of the most famous streets in Vienna, which is located in the first district within the city centre. One of the more notable sights you'll see on this street is the Pestsäule, which translates to the Plague Column, a large Holy Trinity column structure on the street that pays homage to the Great Plague epidemic of 1679, and it's a Baroque period art piece. Nowadays, Graben is mostly a shopping street, with most shops opening around 10 AM till 6 or 7 PM. With many modern and fine traditional shops being here, many of them were built in the 17th and 18th century, and it's a great place if you're looking for coffee shops and restaurants, supermarkets and souvenirs or clothing stores. This is the place to find them all. Number 16, Burggarten. The Burggarten Park is a nice one for nighttime walks, and it's a park in the city centre that's mostly notable for its statue of Mozart that was moved there in 1953. This park borders on the Hofburg and Albertina Palace, and it's a great place to sit and relax or people watch. Managed by the Federal Garden Services, this place is not notable for its beautiful botany, but it's still a nice looking place and a sight to see. It's a good walking spot, and there's a fountain and artificial pond in the middle, as well as statues of Franz I, husband of Maria-Theresian, and Emperor Franz Joseph. Number 15, Volksgarten. A public park in Vienna, the Volksgarten lies in the inner city and it's part of the Hofburg Palace. Originally used for fortifications, this spot contains two fountains called the Triton and the Nymph Fountain, which was built in 1880, and the People's Garten Fountain, which was constructed in 1866. This park is renowned for its luscious rose gardens, boasting over 3,000 roses, bushes of 400 or more cultivars of roses. This place is a landscaped park and it's best to visit when the roses are in bloom. It was opened back in 1823 and it has a monument, a temple, and also the CC Memorial, which is in there too. Number 14, Stadtpark. A large park translating to city park in English, Stadtpark is a park spanning from the Ringstrasse to the Haymarket district of Vienna and houses many different statues within it, which are dedicated to many famous musical composers, writers, and artists of Viennese origin. There's a large pavilion called the Kursalon, which was built between 1864 and 1867, as well as the collective stone and bronze gilded monuments in there too. The park is just like a garden, and it's a beautiful addition to Vienna and a great place to walk. One of my favourite parts of Vienna was the feature of the countless many parks which were good for nighttime walks. Number 13, Ringstrasse. A grand boulevard circular in shape, Ringstrasse is a round bend around the historic inner town of Vienna, and it's located near the medieval sites of the city. This road was constructed after the city walls were taken down during the mid-19th century, and many buildings from the 1860s to the 1890s were constructed alongside the Ringstrasse. As a replacement to the city walls, Sigmund Freud was known to take daily recreational walks along the street, and many of its old buildings that I mentioned before include the Vienna State Opera House, the Austrian Parliament Building, Die Rathaus, which is the town hall, the University of Vienna, and more. Surrounding central Vienna on all sides, the street comprises of many different sections. Number 12, Maria-Theresian Platz. Joining the Ringstrasse, Maria-Theresian Platz is a large public square nearby to the Museums Quartier, nearby the Historical Art and Natural History Museums. This large square sits in the centre of both of these main buildings, which I'll cover a little later in this video. There's a lot of greenery and shrubbery surrounding the centre of the square, a place where a lot of young people and university students usually sit down and study or eat at during lunchtime. Perhaps the most important part of this square though is the main statue which sits in the middle, a piece of true craftsmanship. This is none other than the Maria-Theresian monument in the centre. This piece was unveiled back in 1888 under the rulership of Franz Joseph, one of her successors. The huge monument contains 4 sets of statues which represent one of 4 different facets of her rule and feature other famous people such as Haydn and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart himself. At the top of the monument with her arm reached out is Maria Theresa with her administrative advisors in military, art and science at her side. The segment facing the Natural History Museum is where Mozart and Joseph Haydn sit at the side, which is the portion which represents the science and the arts. Number 11, Old Town. The historic Old Stadt in Wien, also known as the Innere Stadt, is a World Heritage Site and features many different cafes and uptown high street shops in today's Vienna, with art galleries and restaurants dotting around the streets nearby. The historic centre of Vienna is very rich in terms of its architecture, and it has a lot on offer across its various buildings and sites, and the Altstadt is comprised of the many different famous streets and locations which were previously mentioned in this video, such as Graben and Ringstrasse. Number 10, St. Stephen's Cathedral. Stephansdom is the main grand site to see in Vienna, and it's a giant cathedral and mother church of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Vienna and the seat of the Archbishop of Vienna, a place that looms above Stephan's Platz in the city. This is the most important religious point of interest in the whole of Vienna, and it's seen many important events throughout the country's history. Completed in 1160, this place is 107 metres long with a width of 70 metres, towering at a height of 136.7 metres high with 2 main spires measuring 68.3 and 136.44 metres high each. This 23-bell structure was dedicated to St. Stephen, hence its name, and was allegedly the place Beethoven discovered the true measure of his deafness when he couldn't hear the bells chiming as birds escaped them. As with all Austrian churches I've visited so far across 3 different main cities, this church is no different in the sense that it has a truly spectacular and beautifully adorned interior with many different types of stones, gold and precious metals to decorate it. It's absolutely huge inside as you'd expect, and it's publicly open for anyone to come in and visit, which of course I did. If you're appeased by large statues, captivating stained glass designs and historical architecture, then this building won't disappoint in that regard. Number 9, the Hofburg. The Hofburg is the official residence and workplace of Austria's president and was originally the main imperial palace of the Habsburg dynasty, along with their other palaces such as the one in Innsbruck of the same name. One of the main sites to see in Vienna, this place is located in the centre and is most likely one of the first places that you'll want to see. As you crawl up the tight streets before it, such as Graben, it's a true sight to see on approach. With Schonbrunn being the summer residence, this place acted as a winter residence of the Habsburgs and has been expanded several times since its first construction in the 13th century. With a front and back side of the palace with multiple wings, this place houses many different locations and separate attractions within its interior. Some notable locations include the CC Museum inside, which celebrates the cult icon Empress Elizabeth, the Imperial Apartments where you can visit the official and private chambers of Elizabeth and Emperor Franz Joseph, the Imperial Silverware Collection, which I went inside, the Spanish Riding School where you can see live horse riding, the Imperial Treasury where the Austrian crown jewels and other treasures are kept, and more. I personally went inside the Silverware Museum to fill some time. It was not my personal type of visit, although I won't put it down as there were some very expensive pieces in there, and seeing that much gold was pretty fascinating at least. Not to mention the exterior of the Hofburg has some really beautiful statues, and also some fairly crazy and artistic looking ones on the fountains around the sides of the building. Number 8, Austrian National Library. At Heldenplatz is the Austrian National Library, the largest library in all of the country, which houses some 12 million items across its various collections. Around the Hofburg and Vienna centre at the Neuburg wing sits this building. This location was originally named the Imperial Court Library as it was established originally in 1368 by the Habsburgs, changing its name to the currently appointed one in 1920 around the time of the end of the dynasty's monarchy and switched to the Austrian Republic. This building is a library complex holding many archives and special collections belonging to the state, and in German is referred to as Die Österreichische Nationalbibliothek. At Josefplatz you can visit the State Hall of the Austrian National Library. This is a location where I personally went to, as the first one that I mentioned was closed when I tried to visit it. This is a Baroque style building which was constructed in the 18th century as part of the former court library complex. It stands at 80 meters in length and 30 meters in height up to its dome, and it houses 200,000 or more tomes, with 4 Venetian globes and multiple statues which decorate it inside. The State Hall costs €8 for adults to enter. The statue of Emperor Charles VI stands in the centre of the hall, the ruler responsible for ordering the site's construction. With the 200,000 aforementioned books from the period of 1501 to 1850, there's also the personal collection of Prince Eugene of Savoy, a 15,000 or more volume collection, marble statues of the Strudel brothers, and allegorical frescoes in the War and Peace wings. This location is perfect for lovers of historical literature, and if you want to learn more about Beethoven and Mozart, it's also great as there's some material there on them too. Number 7. Art History Museum. The Museum of Art History Vienna is an art museum located on the Ringstrasse segment of the city, familiarised with its octagonal dome-style roof. This place opened around 1891 on the order of Emperor Franz Joseph I, around the same time as its opposing building on the site, the Natural History Museum. With artwork and historical pieces from ancient Egypt up to the late 18th century, this museum is one of the best museums in the world and houses collections of Renaissance and Baroque period art within it. This museum has a little bit of everything, from Greek and Roman antique artifacts, an extensive coin collection, and Near Eastern collection and Egyptian trinkets and pieces, as well as also the library segment of the museum and the collection of sculpture and decorative arts. This is a very interesting place to visit. This is one of those interesting art museums that anyone interested in historical art should visit on their pilgrimage. Number 6. Schonbrunn Palace. Schonbrunn Palace, also referred to as Schloss Schönbrunn in German, is one of the most famous sites in all of Vienna and Austria and was the summer vacation spot of the Habsburg dynasty. Schön means beautiful, and combined with Brunn meaning well or spring, makes the site's name mean beautiful spring. The palace itself contains an insane 1,441 rooms and has history spanning back to over 300 years. I didn't personally manage to go inside the main palace itself here for a combination of reasons. For the fact that I spent most of my time at the zoo and gardens, and also by the late afternoon time I'd nearly fainted in the hot sun and had to unfortunately leave the grounds and recover in the outside shade. Trust me, I had to drink a lot of fluids to get to that point, because I was dehydrated beyond redemption, but I still got to see its beautiful exterior and most of the most important sights there. The garden is a great spot here and it spans for miles as there's a lot of bushes and trees and gravel paths to walk around. This is yet another great day spot and walking spot for anyone who wants to stay fit and have a large site to walk around, as you'll be walking far to get around the full place and see everything that the gardens have to offer. Not only this, but you'll have to have a tough ascent up a steep hill to the top if you want to see the forested area, which is great for picnics and for shade in the hot summer, as well as the Gloriette, which sits at the 200-foot high hill. This structure has been at its head since 1775 as a symbol of the Habsburg ruling power, and it's made mostly from useless stone from the destruction of a different castle. Although this spot was destroyed in the wartime period, it was restored twice, both in 1947 and later in 1995, and inside you'll find a cafe and a spot where you can see panoramic views of the surrounding city. Number 5. Belvedere Palace. Another famous landmark of Vienna is Belvedere Palace upon the Belvedere grounds. This location site contains the Belvedere historic building complex itself, 2 Baroque period palaces collectively referred to as Belvedere Palace, but separately known as Upper and Lower Belvedere. This spot is in the 3rd district of the city on its southeastern edge, and it's home to the Belvedere Museum also. This area is nice to spend a few hours at and can easily take a full day or afternoon, especially if you're walking mostly around the city like I chose to, having done around 10 to 13 miles a day on foot in Vienna. Both the exterior of this site and interiors are beautiful, and as you walk through the entrance connecting you to the north side of Upper Belvedere, you'll ascend up the hilly entrance through a lush garden, which is green with fountains, shrubbery and a lot of benches and statues. The Belvedere Garden looks great in summer and in season, and it's a nice introduction to the site as you walk to the main building. There's a lot of rich history of this site which I won't spoil too much, but the upper part spans back to the 1700s. One of the top rated museums, the Belvedere Museum houses a famous rare collection in its interior spanning from the Middle Ages through to the present date, with Austrian and European art predominantly. Art buffs will enjoy works from Gustav Klimt of Austria as well as Baroque, Pierre Demire and other 1900 and French style pieces. This site is also home to the famous painting from Klimt called The Kiss, which is on show at the museum and it's the main feature piece here. Number 4, the Prater Amusement Park. The Prater is one of the most popular destinations of Vienna and one of the main attractions that you'll hear about. The park itself at Leopoldstadt is actually called the Prater, whilst the amusement park itself in question is called the Wurstel Prater, although it's mostly just referred to as the Prater. This landmark spot is Vienna's amusement park and there's a whole lot to do here. I didn't personally go around too many rides themselves here as I was alone in the spot, although I did go to a few things inside on offer and I stopped by for an awesome hot dog on the way here too, as there's a few really nice food spots inside that you can sit down at outside in the sun or walk around with your food. There's also a lot of vending machines in the Prater, which is a good thing to note because when it's extremely hot you really do need a drink or a snack, and it's a good thing that these are on offer. The park has over 200 booths and there's a lot to do, from haunted horror houses to shoot the duck games and wacky rides and roller coasters. It's the standard run-of-the-mill amusement park, but a whole lot of fun. One of the main attractions is the famous giant 65-meter high Ferris wheel called the Wiener Riesenrad, which is located around the centre of the Prater. This was constructed in 1897 and was the world's tallest Ferris wheel from 1920 till 1985, before the Techno-Cosmos wheel of Japan took over it. This wheel was featured in the wartime film noir The Third Man and the thriller Scorpio, as well as in James Bond The Living Daylights film. It's seen a lot of reference in novels and material, and it even featured in the background in The Walking Dead. It's super fun to go up high on this thing and it gives you a really great view of the surrounding city and the park below. Perhaps the next best attraction here for me was the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, which is located at the park and it lets you go through a series of famous figures inside, from Empress Maria-Theresa to Morgan Freeman and even Michael Jackson. It's a fun spot to take photos and selfies to, which I was guilty for, and many of the wax figures look super lifelike, although there are a few which are less than convincing. There's a lot of rooms here inside with so many celebrities and historical figureheads from different countries that you'll be familiar with if you're into pop culture or history and politics. Some of the things inside are slightly outdated, but a lot of it is up to date and in the current day. The Prater operates on a free admission model where each attraction has its own ticket price and admission, with the Wax Museum costing around 20 to 25 euros and the Ferris wheel costing 12 euros for adults and 5 euros for children. Number 3, Haus Des Meeres. Another of my favourite places to visit in Vienna is Haus Des Meeres, which is a public aquarium attraction in the downtown Maria-Hilf district of the city. The aquarium zoo is run by a non-profit and was originally a flak tower used for fire control until the end of the war. Tickets for this aquarium cost €20.90 for adults and €9.30 for children. The building's height sits at nearly 50 meters high and houses a lot of wonders inside. There are over 10,000 animals across a series of 11 stories of the structure, which include sharks, stingrays, turtles on water and land, crocodiles, lizards, multiple different snake types, countless species of fish, insects, and a lot more. Perhaps the coolest part of the place for me is the area of the building simulating outside biomes. These areas include many different species of birds flying around in the open, monkeys running around, flying foxes, and various other animals. There are so many different enclosures here with beautiful sea life and land creatures. There is the Tropenhaus and Croquis Park, with the Tropical House being home to over 500 animals as mentioned before, and the Croquis Park letting you see the croc pool from the outside glass. There's countless species of animals here and you can spend a few hours and have fun, so it's worth visiting for both family and friends. You do have to walk up multiple floors though, however, so make sure you're fit, and it may be a little bit of a challenge if you're slightly older when visiting here. Number 2, Natural History Museum. Die Naturhistorisches Museum Museum is one of the largest museums and research institutions in Austria, and it's a hub for natural science and history. The museum itself contains some 39 or so exhibition rooms with over 100,000 featured objects on display. With some of its oldest collections dating back more than 250 years old, this museum was commissioned by Emperor Franz Joseph I along with the Museum of Fine Arts, both having the exact same exterior and facing opposite each other. The architecture of this museum is very reminiscent of the Renaissance era, with work beginning on it back in 1871 and the facade being completed in 1881 too. I love museums, and so far the Natural History Museum in Vienna has been one of the best museums I've ever visited, perhaps second to Salzburg's Haus der Natur in my personal opinion. There's a little bit of everything in this museum, with the main beginning exhibition being a rocks, crystals and minerals based set of rooms, showcasing a gigantic collection of some of the most beautifully attractive and expensive crystals that are clearly very rare. There's everything here from quartz to amethyst to emeralds, and it's really interesting. I used to collect crystals and different types of rocks, so this really appealed to me. There's also many different animals and bones from each animal, with a lot of bones from ancient dinosaurs assembled and up on display. There's a room showcasing different species of humanoids and also items from the Ice Age period, with skeletons of saber-toothed tigers on display too. There's almost every type of animal on display here, with many birds preserved via taxidermy or via false puppets, as well as various skeletons of other species of animals and dried and preserved types of insects, not to mention the parasites, which are pretty nerve-wracking to see. Tickets to the museum are €12 for adults and free admission for children under 19. Number 1, Schonbrunn Zoo. My personal favourite place that I visited probably in the whole of Vienna is Schonbrunn Zoo. This place is located on the Schonbrunn grounds, where you'll find the palace of the same name, which I mentioned a little bit earlier in this travel guide. The zoo is also referred to as Vienna Zoo or Tiergarten Schonbrunn, and was originally constructed as an imperial menagerie in 1752, and is the oldest of all continuously operating zoos in the world. This zoo opens 365 days a year from 9 AM to 4:30 or 6:30 PM depending on the season. This is of course minus special situations such as global emergencies like what's going on right now. Day tickets for adults cost €22 here, with children starting at €11. There's a lot to do at this zoo and I loved it. It's perfect to walk around, and it was a fun experience regardless of the particular day which I visited being smouldering hot. The zoo serves as a conservation project and features Baroque period style buildings which have been excellently preserved, with many enclosures with nearly every animal that you can imagine. This zoo is one of the few in the world to be home to the threatened giant panda species from Asia. There's an excellent Amazonian rainforest biome dome in the zoo too, which simulates the Amazon and its animals. You'll also find hanging bats from the top of the enclosure here, as well as lizards and interesting animals, and the smells and surroundings are really great. Along with this, there's also a spectacular aquarium which feature many animals, including a swamp area with alligators, stingrays, many different types of lizards, seahorses, and a beautiful water tank full of 2 different jellyfish species which look really graceful as they swim. There's the typical animals that you'd love to see and expect of a zoo, also such as flamingos, as well as giant tortoises in the aquarium segment which are housed in a large pit. You won't be disappointed if you want to see animals of the African savanna, as they also have multiple giraffes freely wandering around in a big enclosure, as well as a large park area enclosure behind a wall which houses huge elephants. One of my personal favourite locations here was the indoor penguin house, which had many different types of species of penguins roaming around behind glass in plain sight. There's a lot to do here, and it's great for a solo traveller or with friends or family. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this travel guide, do consider subscribing and like the video, and check out my other 2 travel guides on Innsbruck and Salzburg for some more awesome tourist recommendations and fun travel guides. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.